With that, Ken?
Okay, thank you very much, Governor Rowland. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Chris Martz, Director of Global Membership and Education for Kiwanis. I know Chris is going to really kick off this day of optimism with a session about how we can realize the Kiwanis vision during these trying times. So really appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with us, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken. Roland, may I be a co-host so I may share my screen?
Now be on your best behavior, Bobs.
Okay.
This is being recorded.
Okay.
Okay, everything good now?
Got it.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Martz. I am the Director of Global Membership and Education at Kiwanis International. I am coming to you live from Indianapolis. Even though the headquarters building is behind me, I'm not really sitting outside, but that's what it looks like today. It is nice and sunny for our beautiful first day of spring here in Indianapolis. So today, I want to give you some things to think about. You have all seen the Kiwanis vision statement. Most of you can probably recite the Kiwanis vision statement. Kiwanis will be a positive influence in communities around the world so that one day all children will wake up in communities that believe in them, nurture them, and provide support they need to thrive. So what we're going to look at today is how do we do this as Kiwanians? And I'm going to give you a really short activity that can be very impactful that you can do with your own Kiwanis club. A lot of you know that we have a series of ACE tools, Achieving Club Excellence tools, which are amazing to use. But I've pulled out this one little piece that I believe that you can do that can really change the way that you're thinking, especially in this time of change and getting back to some form of normalcy. So what I would ask you to do is to start with each member of your club, identifying how they personally believe in children, how they personally nurture children, and how they personally support children. And then after you do that, you can do that as a club. You can look at your club's vision. How does your club believe in children? How does your club nurture children? How does your club support children? And what you can do is then start looking at the differences. What do your members want? And what does your club do? And that is sometimes a gap in what we have in Kiwanis membership versus what our clubs do. Now, the other way that you can do this is you can just collect these random responses from your club members and have a small pool of people from your club. Maybe it's your board, maybe it's another focus group. Sit down and examine what your members do versus what your club actually does. And again, look for those gaps. And I believe a great question that you can ask your club, you can ask yourself is, am I a part of Kiwanis, or is Kiwanis a part of me? And if you think about that, it can really change your thinking. So are you a part of Kiwanis, or is Kiwanis a part of you? So think about this. Kids needed Kiwanis before the pandemic. That's our theme. Kids need Kiwanis. It's in my background. It's in almost everything that we produce. Kids need Kiwanis. They needed us before the pandemic. They need us more during this time. And when you think about when we emerge from this pandemic, kids are going to need us more than ever before. And that is so important. So it's really time to start planning for the future. And in these uncertain times, and we've heard that phrase a lot the past year, every project probably needs to have plan A, plan B, and plan C. So if you're planning a project that isn't going to take place in July, you probably have a pretty good plan of what you believe July is going to look like. But 2 weeks before the event, things can change. So it is probably a good idea to have plans B and C ready to go so that you're not pivoting at the last minute. So some of you have probably read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. And if you haven't read the book, I encourage you to at least look at his YouTube video. There are a lot of great things that he brings up in the book, Start With Why. So hopefully as Kiwanians, we know what we do, and hopefully we understand why we do it. But let's focus on the how today. And I believe that clubs can really examine how they provide service and how they impact the community. So the how is really the things that make Kiwanis clubs special or that set them apart from their competition. So what do we do differently than Rotary, than Lions, than Optimist, than other civic organizations in your community? And if we're doing similar projects, let's take an opportunity to figure out how we can make them different so that we have a little sort of getting ahead of the curve. So we're thinking beyond normalcy. So let's examine this a little bit more. We can look at several aspects of Kiwanis. We can look at service. We can look at fundraising. We can look at our meetings. We can look at service leadership programs. And when you think about each of those things, what is one thing that you would change about each of those things? And that, again, is a very simple activity that you can do with your club. What is one thing that you would change about your meetings? One thing that you would change about working with your service leadership programs, which I know is a challenge, especially in Western Canada at this time. But think ahead about those type of things. What is one thing you'd change about fellowship? So let's look at service, though. Think of your favorite service project. Think of one thing that would make that service project better. So your favorite service project, one thing that can make it better. Now, ask yourself these questions. Does that one thing cost any more money to make your project better? Some of you are probably thinking of some things that would cost some money. But a lot of you are probably just thinking of simple little things that would make a bigger impact on the community. And then, does that one little thing create any more work for the club? Again, some of you are probably thinking of something that may make the event a little bit larger, may cause a little bit more work, but a lot of you are just thinking of little things. And those little things are how we make big changes. If you sit around your club meeting and you start looking at all the little things that can change a service project so that it's revitalized, it's not a stale project. Maybe there are new things that you add to it because your community needs have changed. All those little things are going to make a huge impact. So everything that we do coming out of this pandemic, I have boiled down into 3 things. So everything your clubs do, first of all, must be engaging. You have got to find ways, innovative ways, to engage your club members. So what's the most important thing to your members? It's probably service. It's probably not meetings. We like meetings. We love coming together and meeting. But as we get back to some sense of meeting in person and rethinking how we do things, think about what's most important to your meeting, to your members. And if it is service, bring service to your meetings. Think about how you can include service in everything you do. The second thing is the word hybrid. So hybrid in our terms mean that there's going to be access for everyone, whether you are in person or you're a virtual participant. So I don't mean hybrid for only club meetings, also service projects and fundraisers. Now, service projects may be a little difficult. So I'm going to take fundraising as an example. Having a virtual fundraiser could be really impactful to your club. Not only are you inviting local communities, but look at all the people you have access to, all the friends that you have around the world that you now could invite to a fundraising event that could dramatically increase the funds that you are raising to provide community service. So you have electronic modes of collecting money. You have great speakers that might be present talking about what your clubs do, a little commercial, but making your events hybrid, very, very important. One of our Indianapolis clubs does a program for a STEM project, and it's called Pints for Half Pint. And last year, they couldn't even do it. But they continued to do it, and they had a virtual Pints for Half Pints. And it literally was people sitting around their computer drinking a beer, and they paid to drink their own beer instead of paying an admission, and the club raised almost nearly as much money. So when you think about going back to those in-person events, think about how you can add a virtual aspect that may be the same or different. And then everything must be membership driven. You're always looking for more Kiwanians, but more importantly, you're always looking for better public relations in your community. So making sure that everything you do, service-wise, fundraising-wise, is publicized. On the screen is a short URL. And if you go to kiwanis.org/then-and-now, you will find a great activity that you can do with your club. And basically, it's a series of about 23 different thoughts that clubs had prior to the pandemic and how clubs should be thinking now. And it's a wonderful activity that you can do during a virtual club meeting. And then if you're a club secretary on here today, you should have received in the mail or will be receiving soon printed copies of the then and now, little cards that you can play at an in-person event. But the PowerPoint that you can do at a virtual event is just as great. So I kind of like this slide. This is a coffee shop, someone just scribbling this down. But let's think about the past year. As we've been thinking about returning to some form of normalcy, it's really time that we think about things and how we do them. This is a great opportunity to change how we do things. So we're going to be making some transitions, really transitions back to in-person events rather than all virtual hybrid events. So make your meetings worth the members returning, and especially as you start returning, because people are going to be hesitant to return to in-person events. So rethink everything, and just be cautious, like this napkin says, of returning to the old way of thinking. Be creative with your meetings, your service projects, your fundraisers, and of course, your social gatherings. So I shared with you the vision statement earlier. And your club should be asking a lot of questions about that vision statement, and really visionary questions. So how do your clubs get to making that vision a reality? And how can it really come alive? So here are some questions that you might want to ask yourself, but your club can come up with its own questions. But what if your club had unlimited funding for its dream project? What would it look like? What if your club had a signature project? Hopefully you all do. What if you had a second signature project? But if you don't have a signature project, what does it look like? What could it look like? What if all your students in your local schools were members of a service leadership program? Again, just ask questions. Ask what if when you're thinking about the vision statement. Because again, this is what it's all about. It's about believing, it's about nurturing, and it's about supporting. So these three words, their meanings are not going to change in the next 10 years. But how Kiwanis does each of these things in the communities definitely will change in the next 10 years. So Kiwanis has to stay relevant, and we have to adapt the way that we live out our vision. So hopefully I've given you some thoughts to think about in the past 12, 15 minutes to really transitioning back to where you were as a Kiwanis club, where you want to be in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 5 years. So just think a lot, share a lot with your Kiwanis clubs. How do we make our vision come alive, and how does it look different than it did in March of 2020? So thank you so much. Roland, I believe we might have some time for questions, but I will let you make that decision.
Yeah, I think we have time, probably 4 or 5 minutes for questions, and then we'll turn it over to Ken to explain the balance of the day. Go ahead. If anyone can unmute, maybe if you stop sharing, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
You did a great job, Chris, because there's no questions. That's probably the first time.
And I will share my PowerPoint with Roland so he can send it out, because I know some of you may want to see that activity again or some notes. And you are more than welcome. I know that all your club members are not on here. I have no pride in authorship here. So if you want to take this PowerPoint and use parts of it with a club meeting, that is perfectly fine.
Hi, Chris.
I'm sure that you will probably share also your email address and whatever kind of thing. Might be some stuff some of us want to discuss with you from time to time.
Yes, definitely. I'm putting in the chat right now.
Hi, Chris. Just wondering where you could find that Start With Why link.
Yes, if you Google Start With Why, you're going to find a YouTube link. The author's name is Simon Sinek, Sinek.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That is also a great thing to show your club. When I was a lieutenant governor in the Indianapolis metro area, our governor at the time used Start With Why as her theme. and all lieutenant governors, all of the Indiana district board members had to read the book, and that was the focus for our entire year.